Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you. I will introduce myself. I'm Manuel Gutiérrez. I work in the strategy team, so I'm not a tech people, a tech guy here, but I'm more than pleasure to be here introducing this panel. What we would like today is to explain you a couple of things. First of all, why Gaia-X is connected with this Eclipse cloud interest group, and it's all about the importance that we have given since the very first beginning to open source community, to open source software community, and the way that we are using open source to scale our own project. To get that, to explain why this is important, today we have the pleasure to have with us two really relevant people. First of all, we have Marco D'Angelo. Marco is external director at Huawei for the open source office in Europe, with a huge and extensive experience in the software world, and he is currently boosting this Eclipse Foundation Cloud Interest Group. He will help us to understand which is the status of this interest group, which are the different opportunities, and well, just like a look to the future, trying to understand the best way that this interest group can become something even more important, becoming a working group in the future. But to connect it with Gaia-X and the way that Gaia-X is using open source software, we have also the pleasure to have with us Klaus Ottradovetz. You know very well Klaus, since he's been with us since the very beginnings. He's part of the Atos community, and obviously he's the lead. He's leading our technical committee. What we wanted with having Klaus here is give us a specific example of how Gaia-X is using this open source software community, and how specifically how Gaia-X works with these open source tools from a very practical way, with a specific and practical example. So I will give the floor to the really important people here. Marco and Klaus, please welcome, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Standing up just because of the sun that basically is transforming Porto in summer instead of my wintry Milan when I came from. So thank you everyone for your time. The presentation will be pretty basic and pretty easy. So I believe that every one of us has been enjoying the kind of content, technical content, that has been shared today up until now, and that will be shared also in the next hours and tomorrow. It's a lot of content compressed, and it's a lot of important messages compressed in a very short time. It could be interesting to have the possibility to have this conversation to continue, to engage in understanding a little bit more about the topics that all the company that's been here pitching their, let me say, project or their aims. So that's for that reason that I'm on stage for the second time at the Gaia-X Summit. Last year, I was pitching the Expanse project. It's an Eclipse project that deals exactly with the multi-cloud, no lock-in, no lockout scenarios. And from this project, and that is basically created and hosted by Eclipse, and the interaction with some other companies that we conveyed at the Gaia-X Summit in Helsinki, we started an interest group inside the Eclipse Foundation. Now, what is an interest group? It's kind of an agora where we can have discussions, where we can have deep down and drilling inside what are the needs of the members and the complexity that deals with the code. So it's not by any means a kind of a chit-chat group. It's a place where companies with code, so that maybe have an OSPO office that created code that wants to contribute code to what is called to be a foundation, or company that has got a need and are looking for understanding what their need can be matched with other companies and other institutions that are creating code, can talk and work together toward which kind of, let me say, goal. Basically, what we have seen here. Creating technologies, creating protocol and specification that can be used to go and be pitched to create some relevant regulation. So no more than that. It was basically, it would be way more complicated to pitch the current 4 projects that are already in. My point is, a working group, it's the natural evolution of an interest group. So right now we are just talking about what are the needs and what we can do together. Our aim is to create a formal group to push toward the standard. No one is too big or too small to collaborate. I'm there with my own company that is basically a very small company, and I'm supporting some of the projects from some multinational companies that are already in Eclipse. So the call to action is just basically, let's talk, let's engage. Please fetch me when you see me around. I can deep down a little bit more on what we are doing, what can be done, and which kind of value we can provide through an interest group held inside the Eclipse Foundation. And that's basically from my side, I would say. Yeah, I mean, we have six minutes each, so.
I have 9 minutes left. I will remain seating. To lift this discussion a little bit up from Eclipse interest group for cloud, looking at what we're doing with Gaia-X and general the topic of data spaces, I would like to reflect that we are actually in between 2 sessions where Stefan explained the upcoming DIN, IEC ISO standard that says, oh, it's a group of participants that's defining rules and implements them. It's a group of participants which agrees on the ways on how to exchange data, so things that you also mentioned here, technologies and protocols. And we're in between Valentina, who's going to talk about an open source implementation of exactly such data space middleware, which Simple is doing. And just like you started with your pitch, I mean, if we have multiple participants that agree on specific protocols, formats, standards, implementations, we must make sure, and we believe it's something that's going to be operated by different decentralized parties. We also need to solve 2 problems. On the one hand side, how do we assure that the software that is operating is actually in itself trustworthy and doesn't introduce implicitly any kind of constraints or IPR validations and so on. And so open source is of course something that helps tremendously if everybody can look at what's really happening in the software. The second one is perhaps, at least from my perspective, even more important. We heard this morning in the various panel sessions the need to provide scalable, commercially viable models that are actually running across different regions, across different domains, and also in between different types of data spaces. So we could, of course, think about we implement everything 150 states times 10 domains, so an enormous amount of times with a very, very few skilled people that we have, or we find a way to make sure that everybody can contribute their specific requirements. Everybody can make sure that they also can leverage what's happening from other parties, and this is exactly what the promise of open source software is. This is why Simple has become an open source program, so multiple data spaces can share one set of middleware. This is why many of the data spaces have worked on open source implementation of the basic code so it can be operated efficiently and across different parties. And last but not least, I'm trying to make the third point, which I've forgotten. Perhaps the third point is that with all these constraints or objectives that I've been trying to highlight, and coming back to your point, let us do minimization of different types of projects implementing the same code. And I would just like to urge everybody, wherever possible, to find an existing project. There's numerous projects on Eclipse, obviously. There's multiple projects with a Linux foundation. There's the open source project that the lab team is doing, unfortunately on none of these regimes at this point in time, and make sure we reach these objectives of scalability. Let's use a solution, as little as possible different versions of solutions in order to make sure we improve scalability and interoperability, and make sure we can effectively make sure that the skills, the rare skills that we have, are used in the optimum way. The third point I forgot to speak about was Stefan presented the slides from the Danube release of the new compliance engine. If you notice, there was one core and a number of solutions that you eventually can plug in order to implement your own rules. And this is perhaps a perfect and excellent example where open source is good for, because you don't need to implement the same mechanisms to look up registries, to publish verifiable credentials. You can have this given functionality and make sure that as a plug-in mechanism, you just add your own code to realize, bring your own rules, to add your own very, very specific rule sets. And because if you have this plug-in model that we're all very, very familiar with, you also know that it becomes much, much easier to combine different set of rules that you may reuse or understand on how you can make these rules interoperability. So call to action is identify, please, if there's existing open source that can be used in your existing project. The less different versions we are using, the more scalable, efficient, fast we're going to be. And it's going to be much, much cheaper to operate and contribute wherever you can, because that's the most efficient way for you and the other projects going forward. And in the last 31 seconds, this, by the way, does not only apply to source code. If you've been following the way on how we're running architecture and technical committee documentation and documents, you notice that we're applying exactly the same mechanisms. We're using version control systems, so GitLab, Jira, in order to manage the contributions, the comments from each and everybody. So I know it's a little bit a stretch because it's not open source software, it's open document generation, but in the same way you can use open source to become more scalable, more efficient. I think we just like to motivate everybody to also contribute in the same fashion to the open document generation we're doing with the different working groups. And nothing more to say.
I would say we are available outside during the lunch breaks and coffee to ask questions of any kind. And then, Manuel, up to you.
Thank you. Yes, maybe just one last question for you, Marco, since you are here representing Eclipse. I know that you are boosting this cloud interest group. You are meeting with a lot of companies, a lot of people. Which are the main opportunities that these companies are seeing around using open software and, well, collaborating? Sometimes this thing about open source software community is not well understood. Give us like a snapshot around this, please.
Yeah, I was mentioning before the theme of the OSPO offices inside companies. So a lot of companies right now are, if not evaluating the project where to contribute or which project to use inside their tool chain or their stack. There's a lot of companies that have already started creating their product. There have been a lot of mention, and when we are here at the Gaia-X Summit, we hear a lot about the data spaces, because this is important. It's the upper side of the X from Gaia-X, but also on the infrastructure side, there's a lot to be done. So the plumbing and everything that goes under the application layer, it's of utmost interest right now for a number of companies, because they want to understand how to get, let me say, not only trust in moving their data, but also trust in running their application. And application have to run on some kind of infrastructure, have to run on some kind of software infrastructure of a low level. So this is an area where there's a lot of discussion too. Getting away from the lock-in of some of the companies that are running Eclipse study from a couple of years ago. 2/3 of every cloud migration project in Europe, and they're not lending in European company, they're not lending in European-owned infrastructure. That's a theme that pairs beautifully with the digital sovereignty. So everyone and his daughter is looking for understanding how to answer this question. That's the kind of question that we try to address exactly with, let me say, behind and beneath the theme of data spaces and trust. So that's area, it's one of the one that you see that part of the discussion. The other thing is about the application layer. So application layer, how to run scalable application that do not require someone else to create scalability for you, that when they miss something, you get with Cloudflare this week and Azure a couple of weeks ago, and AWS 1 month ago. So this area on how to properly structure a software stack that is open source, that is sovereign, and it is fully owned and manageable. It's a topic that it's complicated to answer, but it's part of the discussion. And then there's AI, but AI, it's a complete different discussion on the future ability of how to not stick too much behind. And there it's strategy, testing, a lot of stuff that has to be done in the infrastructure, and seizing and breaking the lock-in and lock-out from some of the other big players. That's the other stuff that it's a lot of discussion going on in some of the cloud provider, telco operators, the usual companies that are represented here by the people here and in the audience. That would be my answer, Manuel.
Well, thank you very much. Big applause for Day.